have to understand that the advice that you're giving, you can be nuanced with it on a long form podcast like this, but the advice that you're giving, most men are gonna internalize that and think, especially young men, that the goal is sex. Like that's the tunnel vision goal, is to have sex with a lot of women. Like that's what we need to do. And so I don't know if you've ever thought about what happens from a brain chemistry standpoint when you have something as high, something with as extreme of a dopamine response as sex, when that becomes your primary driving factor of what you're trying to accomplish. And say you accomplish that repeatedly over years, and say over 5 years, your goal is to meet as many women and have sex with as many women as possible. But that's the end of the goal. It's like, I want to meet women. I want to learn how to engage with women. I want to have sex with women. What you're doing is you're training your brain from a, you can't get past this. It's this, you could replace this with anything. You replace it with cocaine. You can replace it with any addictive behavior of what happens in the brain. It's going to imprint on your brain that behavior, that when you engage in that behavior and that pursuit, you're going to get this big, once you finally achieve it, this big dopamine spike, big. And then you're going to get a big dopamine crash below baseline. And over time, what you're doing is you're training your brain, and you really, at some point, it's more subconscious than anything else, that is the pursuit that you must engage in to get that feeling, whatever you want to call it, that feeling of accomplishment, of what you would think is happiness, which is not happiness. It's fleeting happiness. But that becomes then the pattern that is imprinted on your brain. And to get out of that I'm talking about neural pathways that bond very strongly. And to get out of that, you have to physically rewire your brain. And so my concern with this advice is that by the time the men are ready to settle down, to have kids, to be the best, what I think, I'll die on this hill, being a dad and having a family, there's nothing in the world that will ever be as satisfying or give you the feeling of accomplishment and purpose in your life, period. I'll die on that hill every day. And by the time they're ready to do that, in order for them to get into that state and not still be in this cycle of needing to get that dopamine hit that they've been trained to get over years and years, you have to rewire your entire brain. And that takes time, and it's hard. Trust me, it's hard. It's really hard to do. And so that results, in my opinion, that's infidelity in marriages, it's divorces, it's fatherless homes, which then creates a whole nother cycle over and over again of this same cycle of chasing pleasure over purpose. If you're chasing purpose and along the way you're having sex and meeting women and becoming good with women, but your purpose is focused, and it almost feels like you're almost there, but there's just some parts of it that I don't fully agree with, but that's the secret. Like, so it has to be driven in purpose.
Yeah, I want to bring something up, but
you make a very good point, and I understand that. But I could argue as well, if I sleep with one woman, right, multiple times, I wouldn't say during a period of like a relationship, isn't that the same thing? And as well, let's say
it's not the same thing.
Why?
Because you're pair bonding. You're pair bonding and you're building a relationship. Unless you're just using them for sex, then it's, yeah, sure, maybe it's the same thing. But if you're with a person and you have an intention of building a life with that person, and you're pair bonding and you're learning how to communicate effectively, and you're doing all the things to build yourself up as to become the leader of a family and the leader of that unit, it's not the same thing.
So I'm with that person, but I don't know from experience if she's good for me or not. And as a result, I made that choice not knowing. So I'll ask you a question, right? When you go to buy a car, I'm not saying a woman in a car, I'm giving you an example here. When you go to buy a car, right? What do you do first when you buy the car? You go to your salesman, talk to them about the car, test drive it, and you go buy it. I'm just saying, for most men, sex is a goal, but not the end all be a goal. It's a part of the equation. I'm just saying, have that as a part of your repertoire. So when you meet the woman, all right, sex is good. She's good as a person, as an individual, good family, good to be a mother. All right, full package. I can make it. I have a choice here that this is a good woman for me. That's what we're saying here. We're not saying that that's the end goal be all.
And for you to be able to come to that, rationally sound and logically sound conclusion that this girl is the right one, you have had to have dealt with a bunch of women that might have not been the right one. And what I'm saying is that in today's day and age, most women are not worthy of a long-term relationship. So guys need to be able to vet women correctly. Otherwise, they're the ones that take all the risks. So I get what you're saying, where you're saying like, hey, this might be destructive, but sex doesn't affect men the same way it affects women with pair bonding and having high partners. There's plenty of guys that can go ahead, have a bunch of women, and then go ahead and decide, you know what, I want to settle down now. Because at the end of the day, men are the ones that pick who they commit to.
It's just not true. Like you're right about the pair bonding aspect, but it's not true from a brain chemistry standpoint. When you, it's just science. And I wish like Andrew Huberman was here. He could explain it much better than I can, but like you can't get away from the brain mechanisms of what I'm talking about when you are casual sex that is not based in a relationship. You have sex with a woman tonight, you have sex with a woman tomorrow night, whatever. And I'm sure you guys do really well. Like you're wealthy guys, you're good looking guys. Like I'm sure you guys clean up well.
Pause.
But like, but that behavior, it is high, really extreme dopamine.
I understand that.
Okay. And
I understand promiscuity can affect both genders negatively. I understand that.
So I want to address this because
yeah,
I agree on the, you're better off not being as promiscuous. I understand what you guys are saying though. And I think, I'm curious, it sounds like you guys are saying, hey, this is the way the world is, you have to adapt to it.
Yeah.
And your view is more like, no, we should not be engaging in these things. But let me show you this graphic from the Washington Post. This is an article that has been around for some time. Young men driving the decline in sex. Share of men and women between the ages of 18 and 30 reporting no sex in the past. 28% of men, 18% of women. And that skyrockets, that deviation really comes into effect around 2009, 2010. I think the internet plays a big role in this.
Huge.
But first, there's something to be said about this. Men and women have to have sex with each other for the most part. If men are not having sex at all, and women are having sex, obviously there's a point to be made about maybe the women are having sex with each other or something like that, but I don't think that's a large component of what we're seeing here. I think the issue is the women mostly are still having sex at comparable levels to what they've always done. Men not having sex is skyrocketing. That says that these women, they're having sex with a particular group of men, and
boom.
Here's what I think. I think a portion of men are being slowly removed from the dating pool.
Yep.
Women are maintaining the amount of sex they've always had.
Yep.
That's an interesting social dynamic.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
And that plays a huge role. I'm really glad you brought this up, because that plays a huge role as to what women think they deserve. So unfortunately, a woman that's average looking to maybe a little above average looking has the same sexual marketplace value and pull as a guy that's damn near a celebrity. Why? Because of the advent of the internet, Instagram, etc. An average girl can hang out with extraordinary men. That plays a huge role in their psyche of what they think they deserve and the type of man that they think they're capable of attracting. But what they make the mistake of doing is they think just because I can attract this guy doesn't necessarily mean they can retain that guy. But that plays a huge role because girls think they deserve best. If you ask an average woman, what do you want? She's going to describe to you an exceptional man. And that's been heightened even more so thanks to feminism. Women earn their own money. They have their own status. They have their own cars. They have their own ability to provision for themselves. So since they're able to get all these things themselves, they no longer need a dutiful, responsible, leadership-driven man, because they're like, yo, I just want the hot guy now. I can provision for myself. Let me ask you this, right? If you had a hot girl that was with you at all times, that would give you fellatio, she was hot, she would give you sex whenever you want, etc., would you seriously go out there on dates with women that you didn't like that or tolerate the BS? No, you wouldn't. You'd be like, get out of here. I don't want to deal with you. But that's how women are with their jobs and their money. Women effectively have their own provisioning, so they don't need to deal with the majority of men. So therefore, they only want to deal with the top 10 men, the top 10, top 20% of men. This is why so many guys are out of the sexual marketplace. It's the same situation as if you had a bad chick with you at all times. You would not tolerate female BS. You wouldn't. That's how women feel about their jobs.
So, and to add to this point as well, with the advent of social media, if you look at Instagram per se, I would say that's the biggest dating app in the world, because in the back pocket of Instagram, DMs, women have access to, I want to say, a plethora of guys at their fingertips. So it's like, okay, if he's not give me what I want, if he's not a high value leader, why do I want this guy? And most guys are not that.
And a lot of guys that might share your values, which I agree with 1,000%, will get overlooked because, oh, you're not attractive enough for me. Oh, you don't have enough clout for me, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of guys that are traditionally masculine, attractive guys, right, that might have been attractive 50, 60 years ago, they're overlooked because women want the bigger, better deal. And they're like, I don't care that you have these traits because I can do it myself. So since they're doing that, what it's done is it's deregulated the sexual marketplace. It's deregulated the dating marketplace. Trust me, I wish we could go back to traditional families like the 1950s. I talk about this extensively, how the sexual marketplace has been ruined and we need to go back to how it was, but it never will. And so what we tell guys is, look, you got to adapt to the new normal. Now, with that said, I get what you're saying. Promiscuity affects both genders negatively. Yes, it does. Men to not to the same extent as women. However, guys need to go out there and get that experience and deal with these new women that are more promiscuous than ever before, because the women are absolutely hooking up with guys.
It is so bad that we have guys leaving America called passport bros to go abroad to find girls. If it wasn't that bad, they'd be here getting sex. But it's really that bad.
And I'll say one more thing. I get it. I'm not saying our solution is the best. There's negatives and pluses with everything. Yeah. There's always a give and take, right? But what I want is, I prefer guys to get their money on point, have sexual experience with women, become that guy, adhere to these traits, and then choose down the road, you know what, I'm ready for a family now. I'm in a position where I can do it. I have enough money. I have enough status. I understand female nature. I'm in a position where my woman will respect me and follow my leadership, and then they can make that decision versus feeling pressure to do it in a new normal that isn't set up for them to win. So yes, there's negatives on both sides, but I'd rather the guy make that decision himself versus getting into a marriage and potentially losing everything.
But then wouldn't the solution be to be a passport bro? Well,
a lot of guys are taking that. A lot of guys are taking that route.
Let me clarify though. I don't actually know what the full term means. I've only just heard it for the first time.
Yeah.
But my assumption is there are guys who want a traditional, normal relationship, and they have to leave the country to find it. Is that what it means?
So
that's a component.
A lot of guys are struggling, as you can see from this graph here as well, and it's not by choice. They have to, because most girls don't want that type of guy. So they say, you know what? I have a solution to the problem. I'm going to leave America, where women are more stuck up, more like demanding. Go to Colombia, Philippines, anywhere else in the world that's more traditional. And okay, cool. Now I'm an American. My value is perceived a bit higher than most people here. So I'm the chosen one now. So now the options have changed, because as an American, you become the hierarchy there. So for the most part, guys want access to women, but if they can't get it here, they'll go abroad. So
then I wouldn't say passport bro is the solution. My initial assumption is you can go to a country like Colombia where there's traditional values, but it sounds like what you're saying is it actually increases the perceived value as an American. So guys are going to go be promiscuous.
There's a multitude of reasons why guys go, right? Yeah. Some guys go there to just hook up. Some guys go there to find a girlfriend. Some guys go there because the cost of living is lower. There's a multitude of different reasons. But the bottom line, it seems like the common denominator here is that women in the West in general typically are less marriageable than they were 50, 60 years ago.
And we're not saying they're not good women here, because they are good women in America, 100%. Sure. We're just saying, how do you know who's good for you, who's not? Well, you must have experience.
I think you've got the process a little backwards, is how I feel about it. I think you need to decide the kind of man you want to be. You need to map out your life and the type of man that you want to be and the type of woman that you want. Like, you need to know that for you, and you need to take steps to become that. And as you become that, you naturally will attract the type of woman that you're trying to attract. I don't think you gain much with casual sex. Now, again, it's not about, like, I'm not saying sex is bad. Sex is awesome. And if you want to have sex as you're dating, as you filter out mates and who maybe you want to build a family with, that's great. But the first step shouldn't be like, you got to date all these women, have sex with all these women to figure out what type of woman you want. The first step is, what kind of man do I want to be? Here are some steps I need to take to become that. And what does the woman that I'm going to marry, who's going to raise my children, look like? And then you actually have a roadmap to then go out and, when you're dating,